The views expressed on the Nova Society are those of the panelists and guests and do not necessarily reflect the views or opinions of the Phoenix Research Institute or any institution which any panel member is associated. Reproduction or dissemination other than for the purpose of education or information without the express written permission of the Phoenix Research Institute or Nova Society Media is strictly prohibited.
Welcome back to the Nova Society. I'm your host, Dr. Brooklyn Ann Weldon, and I'm here with my panel, Dr. Scott Gershwer and Dr. Mark Bount. Today, our panel will, once again, be answering listener emails. Our question comes from Julie, who lives in St. Louis, Missouri. Julie asks, it looks to me like Elon Musk is the true president of the United States. He has been gutting numerous federal agencies that could have a serious impact on the services so many of us rely on. As a retiree and Medicare and Social Security recipient, I am worried that these cuts could be bad for me and my fellow retirees. Does the panel think the Congress or the Supreme Court might step in to stop what looks to me like the tearing down of our government? The Musk people are getting access to our personal information. Is this even legal?
Well, I guess the courts really decide what's legal and what's not. But so this is personal for me right now because we're trying to get my mom Medicaid. And we succeeded in getting her, I think, 56 hours a week. And we're looking for more. She needs to be watched 24/7 every day. She's 95 years old. She's suffering from tremendous amounts of dementia. She insisted that she stay in the house that I grew up in. And she basically sits in a chair and looks out the window, which we have a really nice view of the bay across the street. There are no houses on the other side of the street where we live. And so she can see the bay very nicely. And she likes sitting there and looking out the window pretty much all day. Occasionally she goes outside and takes a walk up and down the block, but she needs to be watched because she can't, we don't know where she would go if she just kept going. And we're trying to get Medicaid. And every day I'm wondering when that's going to get cut off. And we're going to have to figure something out. And we're in the same position that I think something like 70% of seniors in our society are on Medicaid, and they're in danger of losing that, as are small children, of poverty, et cetera, et cetera. So it's very concerning. And it looks like this is going to be legal because Congress's vote is going to vote on deep cuts to Medicaid and a lot of other social service functions that for a long time now, I think Republicans have objected to because it's not explicitly in the Constitution, or at least that's what they're saying. And they want to give more of that money to wealthy people to, continue fueling their campaigns, I guess, whatever the motivation is there. So it's all very concerning. Elon Musk is just at the beginning of it. His claims have been quietly of saving from fraud and abuse have been quietly walked back. Stats that he had on his website, Doge's website, were quietly taken down because they were inaccurate. It seemed that when he needed the money, to be escalated, he had something that was $8.8 million, and they needed to save more money, so they simply changed the M to a B and made it $8.8 billion. And idiotic things like that. I can't imagine that this is going to continue much longer, but there is no sympathy on the part of Republicans for this because they have long been against this. And we were talking about town halls before. At one town hall where veterans were saying, hey, we had a job with the federal government and now that job is gone. How can you stand by and let this happen to us? The Republican congressman said, God has a plan for you. And that's supposed to be the answer. So, I think this is real. This is not a fake. And it's going to cause a lot of people a lot of pain. Seems to be motivated by giving more money back to wealthier people. and a lot of people are going to suffer as a result.
Yeah, and I agree with Scott that the idea of what's something legal or not, we have to leave that for the courts. We'll see what happens with this. But I think we also have to remember the people that are enacting this. These people in Congress. If you're in there long enough, you get a pension, you get free health care for like the rest of your life. You're probably not going to go on Medicare. Again, they have no skin in the game when it comes to that. Same thing with Trump, same thing with Musk, same thing with all of these people that are basically looking, to take these services away. And again, we're not talking a huge portion of the budget compared to, say, like the military. We're talking a very minor bit. And the fact is that yes, people need this. People are really in need of this. And the people that are cutting it out from under them are the people that will never need it. And I think that's something that we always have to keep in mind. Who is enacting some of these programs? Elon Musk sure as heck doesn't need to worry about it. But they came out today. I would be more concerned with the fact that now they have your medical records, now they have your financial records, now they have all this, and they seem to be getting an awful lot of information. And there was always, people would always talk about, privacy and things like that. Oh, I want to keep my stuff private. We hear about it on the internet a lot. And the fact is that all of your privacy is basically gone at this point. If you're on Social Security, heck, the IRS, all of these different agencies of which the Doge is going into basically are getting that information. They're accumulating. And one of the things we always say on this podcast is, the true power of society is knowledge. That's what they're getting. They're getting the true power, which is information and knowledge. And I think that's something that the average person in the United States should be really concerned about, because they're going to have everything, and they're going to pick and choose exactly what it is you get. Doesn't matter if you worked for your entire life. Doesn't matter that the populace is put into to Medicare taxes for forever. We've been doing it. And they always call it an entitlement. It's not an entitlement. It's something you paid for. That's like saying I paid for car insurance and I got into a wreck and they had to pay. That's an entitlement for me. No, it's not. You paid the premiums, and therefore you should get the services. And the same thing here. And Julie, I think it is. I feel bad for you. I really do. My parents and grandparents and all are deceased. And so it isn't as personal to me as it is to Scott with his mom. But the fact is that, I live in a neighborhood that has a lot of retirees here, and they're afraid. And here's the thing that gets me is pretty much every single one of them voted for Trump. I'm in South Carolina. Pretty much every single one of them voted for Trump. And when they come over and they say, geez, I don't know what's going to happen with my Social Security and Medicare and this and that, my comment is you asked for this. You voted for it. I didn't. So you got to take your medicine. And that's basically what we're looking at here. So Musk getting access. Plus, we also learned today, or actually the other day, that Elon Musk is not in charge of supposedly Doge. It is somebody by the name of Allison Gleason,
who's in Mexico on vacation. Mark, can I just ask you one question, interrupt you 1 second? When you tell your neighbors, you voted for this, what do they say to you?
Well, all right. So first of all, there's an awful lot of denying reality. It used to be, no. What you're hearing on the news and all this stuff is that's fake news. Now that the story's changed a little bit. Now it's early days. Let's see what happens. But as the early days start getting into later days, that attitude is beginning to change a little bit, and you can see that they're concerned. I mean, you really can. You can see that they're afraid, as well they should be.
Yeah, Mark. So I have a theory about this.
Okay.
I wanted to jump in on because I do think that these people who are showing up at town hall meetings of Republicans and complaining to them, I do believe that their word is going to go back up the line to the White House. And Right now, there's not a whole lot of sympathy for these people who are suffering, who voted for this. But I think that that will change. And the other day, was asked something about blue states and red states, and he says, "Well, there aren't going to be blue states and red states anymore." And I think that the idea here is that the plan is going to be to carve out the South Carolinas, maybe not state by state, maybe congressional district by congressional district, and grant waivers to people who are living in counties or voting districts that voted for Trump, possibly even on a sliding scale, depending on how much they voted for Trump. And that rather than doing away with Medicaid across the board, what you're going to see is all these carve outs happening so that the people who voted for him will be protected. We saw a precedent for this in the with the farmers in the first administration when the trade war began with China and China decided to go to Brazil and Australia to get all of its farm goods, hogs and soybeans and corn or whatever. The farmers got really badly hurt. And what Trump did was he bailed out the farmers to the tune of like $218 billion, I think it was, or something along those lines. But he made sure that red state farmers got treated first. So if you were in Iowa, you're an Iowa farmer, you got your bailout. But if you were a New York farmer, you may not have. Didn't even look really at owned the farms. Didn't get that granular on it, but used geography and red state, blue state as his guide. And in this way, he can eliminate the dissent from red states and put more pressure on blue states to do things his way.
Well, that's Scott, that's an interesting theory. I will not impart that on my neighbors here because I want them to sweat. I don't want to give them any hope onto this. But here's the issue, and I understand the analogy with the farmers, and I get that part. In South Carolina, and just taking South Carolina for an example, Trump took 58% of the vote. 42% of the vote went against him. I believe that's a pretty close number. I'd have to really check it, but I'm pretty sure that's pretty close. Might have been, I think he won by about 15 points. Well, now we're talking about Medicare, and we're talking about Social Security. And I think he would have to target that. So if he was to come, my home county, which is Spartanburg County, I think he won Spartanburg County by, 20 points. So let's say 60-40. And the fact is that, okay, how do you divide out? Yes, I want those Trump voters to get the Medicare and Medicaid, but leave out those other ones, especially in something, where he can't put the broad, that broad blanket that he could put when it comes to farming. I mean, I think this impacts every citizen. Every single citizen that works pays into Medicare. Every single citizen that works pays into Social Security. I just can't see how he could, maybe there is a way they could do it, but how they could divide that out. And let's say, and as you talk about, New York, yes, New York. The only reason Trump loses in New York is because of the city. That's the only reason. Where the farms are in New York is red, deep red. So if he's withholding it from farmers in New York, he's actually hurting his own people because the upstate of New York, for the majority, is deep red. So it's a little difficult to come up with that.
Can't they do the voter rolls and see who's registered to what party? And just since they have access to all this information that they're not supposed to have, and then they just give it out to individual by individual based on party?
Yeah, and I think that this is the role of Elon Musk in all this, right? I'm reminded that in the campaign in 2016, Trump was looking for a vice president, and he went to John Kasich, who was not a big Trump fan. John Kasich had been the governor of Ohio, was a former congressman from Ohio. And Trump went to him and he made him a deal. He said, "You can run the government, and my job will be to make America great again." John Kasich turned that deal down. He went to Mike Pence next, but Mike Pence's role was a little bit different. Mike Pence's job was to get the evangelicals on his side and rally them. And Trump ended up winning the race and not really knowing what to do once he gained power, which is why the 4 years were so chaotic and really just such a mess that people forget about it. Now he has Elon Musk. And Elon Musk is running the government and will use AI probably to solve the problem that you're talking about, Mark.
Mhm.
AI will be able to determine where they need to carve out and how they can go about refining this plan to punish Democratic voters and reward Republican voters. And I imagine your neighbors would be very happy to hear this and not think it at all unfair. I don't know how they'll go about that, but someday you can tell me when you present it to them. And they say, yeah, because I have a friend who was a Wisconsin farmer, and he said, hey, the reason that the red out was because they were targeted, just like Canada has said they will target red states. They will target Trump voters with their boycotts and tariffs, not not overall America, but AI will solve that problem, I think. And Trump is back to where he wanted to be, which was the Pinot, president in name only. He never wanted to run anything. He's not a mid-level manager, and he's not interested in the granular part of governing, right? You campaign in poetry, but you govern in prose. He wanted to be the poetry, and that's what he will continue to be. I think that he is already there now, where he makes these pronunciations. He puts out these ridiculous videos about Gaza, and how they're going to have Trump hotels in Gaza and things like that. And he thinks that that's going to make America great again, while he's got Elon Musk, who is a supposedly great manager to manage all these things. And AI will be the tool of choice to make these decisions that need to be made about who gets what and who's restored to Medicaid or who's restored to Social Security or gets SNAP benefits. Because right now, let's face it, it's red states that get most of these government programs. Red state governors for a long time now have been getting people in their state off of unemployment, which is run by the state, to Medicaid, which is run by the federal government, by way of all these big billboards that you see all throughout the South. Disabled, you need help, need a lawyer's help to get SSI. They'll continue to do that, and these people in these red areas will be protected, and people in blue states will be hurt.
Well, I guess I got to be careful of AI because, okay, I'm in a red area. They'll hear about this podcast, and my Social Security and Medicaid will go down the tubes. And you know what? Sometimes, when you look at this, you don't like who you have to thank, and it's like, yeah, okay, fine.
But you're also an enemy of the state, so they'll take your guns away if you have any, and they'll
Yeah.
make sure that you're unarmed and unable to resist.
And take away my internet.
No, they could do that.
Just next thing you know, internet's going to go out for no reason, and they're going to say, nope, you're no longer on the list. Out you go. So hopefully we answered that question with that dystopian ending.
Well, I mean, that's where we're going. It seems to me, is becoming a dystopian state, and we've got, as Glenn said, the federal judges holding up the wall. What happens as we march inexorably into the future, because we certainly cannot turn time back and redo anything that's done now. So thank everyone for keeping up to date and educating themselves with the Nova Society, and join us again next time.
The Nova Society is a production of Nova Society Media, a division of the Phoenix Research Institute. We'd like to thank our production partners, Buzzsprout, who hosts the Nova Society, Audacity, our editing partners, Apple iTunes, the largest source of podcasts and music on the internet, Spotify, the most popular platform for the Nova Society, and iHeartRadio, your source for all things music and podcasting. The Nova Society is available on all of these and other quality platforms listed in our description. We'd also like to thank all of our listeners. Without your support, the Nova Society would not be possible. If you have a question or a comment, we can be reached at nova.society.podcast@gmail.com. So for Dr. Brooklyn Ann Weldon, Dr. Priscilla Hobbs, Dr. Scott Gershwer, and all of us here at the Nova Society, I'm Dr. Mark Bound. Remember, the true power in society is knowledge. Thanks for listening, and we will see you again next time. We'd like to thank our sponsor for this episode, the Journal of Interdisciplinary Conflict Science. The JCIS is an open journal for upcoming scholars. The JCIS is currently accepting article submissions on an ongoing basis. The JCIS is a publication of Nova Works, a scholarly repository at Nova Southeastern University. A link to the journal is in our description.